Ruby, stop licking my leg, please.
No, Ruby.
You do this every time.
Ruby, that's a no-no. Go lay down, please. She's a naughty dog.
All right.
No,
all right.
she's a good dog.
Welcome back, you guys, for episode number 10 of
10. Oh my God, I just realized it's 10.
Yes, episode number
Wow.
10 of the Don't Do Stupid Shit podcast.
That feels like a big number.
It is.
10.
10 episodes. That's 2.5 months.
We're into double digits.
Yes, we
That
are.
is
Ruby,
good.
again, please stop licking my leg.
Sit down, Rubes.
For those of you listening or watching,
Good girl.
our dogs are here again. Our little mutts, little babies, but they're hanging out down here this time. They're a little too I don't know. They kept licking my leg, which I guess she's gonna do either way, but it got kind of obnoxious, so I didn't want them sitting up here with us.
They've been sent to the floor.
Yes, they've been exiled to the floor.
They're allowed up on the couch this time.
Yeah, so today I think me and Mom wanted to talk about a little bit of our criminal history.
Criminal history. Jeez.
Our lives as
Joshua,
outlaws.
That feels extreme. I don't know.
Well, maybe for you. It's not really
that's
extreme
true.
for me, I guess.
I
But
have a little one. Just a little
I got
one.
a little baby rap sheet.
I do a little bit. Mine's even
You got an
smaller.
infant rap sheet.
Yeah, very, very little.
But no, we thought it would be funny to kind of talk about our different experiences, kind of getting into trouble growing up, and maybe what caused our choices.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just laughing talking about it, but I brought up the idea of doing this as an episode, and she was trying to argue with me that, like, she got into just as much trouble as me, and I was like, Mom, you did not get in just as much trouble as me.
But you have to frame it in the context of the two growing ups that we had. In my world of growing up, I was for sure the bad kid and the kid that was getting in trouble all the time.
Yeah. And
Jesh
that's
was
accurate.
also getting in trouble all the time.
I'm
not going to call him a bad kid because I don't believe that, but that's what people called me.
Yeah, I got called a bad kid all the time. I don't think I was a bad kid either, but we talked about it a little bit. I just had a lot of frustration and
There's a lot of things that were happening in life that were underneath those choices.
Right.
Which was the same for me. But it's funny how people label you and how you grow up with those labels. And when when we were comparing notes, the things that were getting me sent to the principal's office in my high school years were passing a note that said this girl looked like she was pregnant. And the things that were getting Jesh sent to the office.
I mean, it was anything from fighting to stealing classmates' cars and going off campus to all sorts of dumb stuff.
Not exactly the same.
Yeah, not the same thing, but we were both labeled the bad kid.
You were the bad kid.
We were the kids that other kids' parents were like, oh, no, I don't think you should go over to their house or, whatever. But
I was definitely the kid that wasn't invited to birthday parties. I remember that for sure.
Birthday parties, that's
girls,
foul.
Yeah, because the girls and let's talk about that. We're not talking about a school where you had 100 people in your grade. We're talking about a school where there was like 24, maybe. So if you weren't invited to the birthday party, you absolutely knew it.
Yeah, that's rough. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty bad.
It was rough. But I was the kid that was from a divorced family. None of my friends were most of the kids in my class were not from a divorced family. A couple were. But I was from the divorced family, and I learned pretty quickly after trying to run away from that school, which was definitely something I tried in first grade, that my way of survival in that was going to be mouthy.
Yeah.
And to talk back and to be vocal because I couldn't run away. So
Wait, so,
That got me
okay.
in a lot of trouble.
I got something for us.
Yeah.
Let's think about when was the first time you can recall getting into like trouble outside of home? Like in school or maybe with like a friend's parents or law enforcement, whatever it may
Yeah.
be.
Okay, so I remember my first time. I'll say two, because one, we were living when I was 4. My mom had gotten divorced, and so we moved from North Dakota to Seattle, Washington, where my mom's brother and sister lived, and they had 2 girls, and we moved in with them. My mom was a young single mom. She had me at 19, so she was only 23. She was close to your age.
Yeah.
And so we moved in with my aunt and uncle. And I remember the first time I really recall getting like spanked was my uncle. He spanked me. I'm pretty certain he used a belt, and me and my 2 cousins, we all got spanked. Apparently we got into a fight. Now, I have no idea what that was over and why it deserved corporal punishment.
Corporal punishment.
But apparently that's what it did. That's what it deserved. Yeah. So I was probably 5, I'm guessing by then, maybe a little bit, maybe 4. And then the next time I really remember was I had to have been in kindergarten, so probably 5 then. So it was probably 4 and 5. The school that I went to believed in corporal punishment.
Yep.
And we had a wood paddle.
It was also a different time. Like
it
where
was
this
definitely
was
a different time. And again, like we've talked, this was a cult. So don't even mix words here. Everything that I'm saying was unacceptable. So I'm not even saying this was like just a different time and just kind of how things were done. No. This was definitely beyond the limits of what anything should have been. But we had a wood paddle that was probably this long.
Sheesh.
And about this wide, and it had 18 holes in it. And that's what they would spank us with. And I got sent to the principal's office for something, probably after I tried to run away, maybe before I tried to run away. And I got spanked with that. And then in first grade, I got spanked with that every day. Every day I got in trouble for something that was allowed to be.
Your ass must have been bright red.
Well, what I learned is in second grade, I started trying to pad. I would say I had to go to the bathroom first.
And throw toilet paper on your
toilet paper in my underwear.
I remember
Try to pad myself.
You guys had a paddle.
We had a spoon, a wooden spoon.
A spoon, and which one was it, Addie, that threw it out the window? We were on a road trip, and one of us found the paddle and threw it out the window along the way, and you guys turned around and went back and got it.
I think Addie's also the one that wrote on it, "Be gentle, God." God.
Oh,
so
good.
I will say this. You guys got spanked. It didn't happen a lot.
No, we did not. You guys were not
super frequent. We tried to find ways. At least my recollection. Now, God help me. You guys probably have it different, but
I would say there's a lot more like scolding in the form of like verbal than there ever was
right.
like physical. Like
Yeah,
you guys weren't using a belt to fucking spank us.
I didn't like the physical discipline, but that's what I'd grown up being
I
taught
think that
was how you did
right,
it,
and I think that had to do with a lot of like how you guys grew up as well, like experiencing that quite a bit. But I'm trying to think the first time I remember getting into like I mean, you probably remember better than I do, but I was in the principal's office in elementary school all the time, wasn't I?
Oh, kindergarten.
Yeah,
Your principal had us on speed dial. That was basically it. But we asked for that. We told him we wanted to be involved, and we didn't want the school we wanted to be involved in the discipline and training of your life. And again, that stemmed from what I grew up in. I didn't want the school having the ultimate power in disciplining you without my awareness, because a lot of times that's what had happened with me.
The first big amount of trouble I remember getting into was the cap gun.
Principal Williams Isn't that who it was?
Yeah, I think
At
so.
Oak Heights?
Yeah.
Was it Oak Heights?
It was Oak Heights.
Yeah.
And I got, like...
Did you bring a cap gun to school?
Yeah, remember you guys got me the cap gun? That's what led to
Oh,
the whole,
God.
like, expulsion or whatever, like, me leaving that school.
Oh, well...
Wasn't it?
No. Because
No,
you
that
were
had to
there
do with the
for
teacher.
a
But
few
that
years.
was a big part, though. I remember I, like, brought a cap gun to school, and
Oh, gosh.
I got it for my birthday or something, and I was trying to show it off, and...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you bring a cap gun to school, it's probably...
Not gonna be...
Trust me, I wasn't planning anything, like,
No.
foul, but I thought it was so
thought it
cool,
was
and
so
I was
cool.
trying to show my
Yeah.
friends, but one of these little fuckers snitched, and then that was no bueno. But
That would have been... What would have that been then? Just second grade, right?
second or third grade,
I think it was second.
I ended
Yeah.
up moving schools, and then
Well, no, we moved schools the following year, but we
No, I
pulled
know,
you
it
out
was-
in
it
the
was
spring of
fourth
that
grade-
year. That I remember that teacher. You had a good experience through kindergarten and first grade at that school, and your principal was awesome, and he knew we were very involved, and that we knew the type of kid you were. And I remember going into each year, we would meet with the teachers, and I would say, "Look, this kid is going to respond to whatever you set out in front of him. So if you treat him like he's a bad kid, he's going to be the worst kid you have in your class. If that's your expectation, he is going to deliver."
yeah, and that one teacher thought I was just a bad kid.
Yeah, and she treated you that way, and it went south.
And I just was
so bad.
wreaking
And I
havoc.
warned her, and we also told her at the beginning, like, if things start feeling like they're out of control, have him call us. Every teacher had done that. They would send you to the phone at their desk and say, "Call your dad." And that scared you more than anything. That would keep you in line. But she, for some reason, thought she knew better, and she didn't think she needed our advice, which is an issue I have with a lot of times with teachers at schools and schools in general, especially... Yeah, I mean, I can't label it just public schools because it's also private schools, but they think they know what's best for you. And I get that they deal with parents a lot of times who are not very involved in their kids' lives.
Yeah, but
we
every-
were very involved.
every
and we
kid's
were
different.
clear. And every kid is different, but we were clear that the best way to deal with the struggles that would come would be, one, to set the expectation that she knew you were a good kid and expected you to live up to that. And that if you were behaving in a way that was not acceptable, to put you on the phone with us. And that's generally all it took. And every other teacher so far had been cool with that. The principal had been good with that. But this lady felt like she knew what was best and carried around a lot of judgment about what a parent was supposed to be, even though she wasn't a parent herself. I think she was pregnant that year. She got pregnant that year.
probably.
Yeah, she probably was regretting.
She probably
Choice.
knows now.
I hope she
She's
does.
like, oh fuck. I
That's
should've-"
kind of how life circles around. But yeah, we ended up pulling you out in the spring, and I made her prepare packets for you for home to do for school, which made her job harder, but she was not willing to be a partner in the situation. And so we finished off that year, and then you went into third grade at that same school. And I remember meeting with your teacher at the beginning of third grade, and she said, "I was warned that he was a difficult kid and that was going to be a problem." And he goes, "I have seen nothing like that." She goes, "I took your words," because again, I wrote a letter
Fuck,
to
I
her.
remember her. What was her name?
was
She was an
amazing.
older lady with
Yes,
short
she-
black
yep.
hair.
And she was awesome. She said, "I read what you wrote me and I took it to heart. And from the minute he came into my class, I saw his softness and I drew that out, and that's what I focused on. And he's been a joy to have in class."
I remember she was
So-
sweet. She was
Yeah.
like, if I remember that school at all, like that's the face I remember was
Yeah.
her.
You had a great
And the
year.
principal,
And the principal, yeah, he was fantastic.
Mr. Williams.
Yeah, you had a great year that
He
year. in
was
third
cool
grade.
peoples. He knew I was just a little fuckhead, and like he was always cool with me though. I don't know, but I really
You know
started
what
like
he used to tell me about you? And he would tell your dad and I, which was absolutely the truth. He said, "I've never had a student as honest as Jesh." He goes, "It never fails." He comes into my office and I'd say, "Joshua, did you do this?" And he'd go, "Yep, I did." He goes, "Most kids will lie." And he goes, "Not your son. He just owns it. He just cops right to it and he tells the truth." And that's...
that changed
good
over
thing.
time a little bit.
Well, You started learning
Well, and then
that the consequences started getting larger the older you got if you copped to the truth.
Yeah.
You still tried it. You tried it in high school with baseball, and it didn't work out so well for you with your coach that year. Being honest about your struggles that year.
Oh,
Remember
yeah. Yeah. That's a whole nother story. I mean,
is, but
I did have a
sometimes-
good conversation with him. Like, there's a lot of pieces to that, but
But that's the thing is, as we get older, sometimes society and the world around us doesn't respond to honesty the way that they should, right?
I don't even think it's. I think it's more like now, it's like I just don't say shit because I'm dealing with the cops instead. So it's like you just
Well, because the system,
zip tie your mouth.
Again, because the system isn't set up to reward honesty. It isn't. And that's what
There's
we
some
as a
cops that are
society
cool.
have taught.
Okay, I take it back. There's a couple cops that I've met that are cool. You know exactly who they are. Bothell High School.
Yep.
Freaking Stevie's too.
Yeah.
Officer Stevie's. You were a G. You were
Officer
cool.
Stevie. I mean, that's an interesting story because I knew him growing up.
Yeah, that is kind
And
of
he
funny.
went to the same cult church and this cult school 2.0 that was in Kirkland. And he was the bad kid.
And so
there.
did the SRO at Bothell, didn't he?
Yeah. Garrett.
Yeah.
Officer Ware.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both grew up in that same nonsense.
I doubt they'll
So-
ever hear this, but shout out Officer Ware
Yeah.
and shout out Officer Stevie's.
Yeah,
You guys were
thank you guys. You
were
remember
cool
me,
people.
and I was older than you, but you made a difference in this kid's life.
I would
and
say
I'm
Officer Ware,
grateful.
Officer Ware, you were the first like police officer that I was ever like, this dude actually kind of cares. Like he's a good guy. Like you cut me some slack a few times, so
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
mean,
I honestly learned my lesson from those experiences, like far more than I did ever like dealing with the other cops and shit. Like
Yeah.
like because you actually like took the time to like talk to me about it or this and that.
Yeah, well, they had grown up in some really awful situations as well, and they knew what it meant to struggle through some of the same stuff, and they knew where your mom had come from, and
There's a couple situations that I really got cut a break. Like I'm not gonna
you've
speak
been
too
cut
much.
a lot of breaks.
No, I'm
so-
talking about with them specifically. Like I'm not gonna like say specifically what they were because
God. Don't
nobody
get them-
needs
don't
to get in
them
trouble
fired.
or anything like that. But yeah, y'all were good people. But
I think the point is what I was getting at, and there are people I know that watch this podcast who do know them and communicate with them still to this day. So if you pass it on, pass it on. I'll say this. From my understanding, Officer Stevie and Officer Ware both showed wisdom and understanding and a recognition that we make choices and there's a lot behind it. And there's times when that deserves a break, and there's times when discipline is the best option. And I think that is what made them, and hopefully to this day, amazing police officers, the good ones.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Officer Ware's the only person I've
Thank you
ever
for
gone
that.
back and visited at a high school since I've graduated. I went back the year after and the
Yeah.
second year after graduating to go try to see
Yeah.
him. But I don't even think there's SROs anymore, are there? I'm pretty sure all
mean,
that shit got canceled.
Honestly, I hope not, because I think that's one of the poorest decisions that was ever made, is beginning to
Well, I think they're.
police our schools in that way, not from a safety standpoint.
Yeah, it
but
should
from-
only be for safety, in my opinion.
It definitely became a way of criminalizing youth. When I grew up, those experiences that happened in your youth were the bed of learning, and you weren't, faced with criminal charges because you were stupid and you did something dumb because you didn't know. And you guys were facing that kind of stuff from the time you were like in junior high. Technology reshaped the game for what you guys had to experience and what you had to deal with. And being, developing brains and being young and not knowing, you guys engaged in criminal behavior without realizing it was criminal behavior. And
I mean, sometimes we,
well, okay,
we
yes.
knew it was criminal behavior,
Yeah, but there was things that, again,
there were outliers, though.
I think I guess maybe what I am getting at is that you didn't know the weight that would carry with the decisions you were making,
that's
because
fair.
you didn't have the emotional maturity and the mental development to see that.
I would agree with that.
And that is a setup for disaster when you're allowing that to become criminal in nature amongst youth.
Man, I started getting into the most trouble when I was in probably junior high.
Probably junior high's a rough time.
That's when I really started doing dumb shit, and I also think I got a little more
Thinking about my junior high,
more aware of like what was going around me, like
yeah,
while I was kind of acting out.
for sure.
And then high school was just a fucking shit show.
My junior high, I got expelled and then taken to some people in Everett at a church to have the demons cast out of me.
For what? What'd you do?
Fighting with your older sister's dad, in the middle of class. We got in this massive verbal back and forth fight, and they expelled me for it. And they told my parents I couldn't be let back into the school until they took me to somebody to cast the demons out.
You had an exorcism? Would they strap you down to the table and hold the fucking cross over you?
No, I had to sit in this room with these strangers who were basically like,
demon, you are not welcome.
They were like calling out like all these, like the demon of rebellion and all this kind of stuff. And then they were asking me what I was seeing when my eyes were closed. And I was telling them like I was seeing colors. I mean, come on, everybody, close your eyes right now. Like, tell me what you see behind your lids. You probably see flashes of colors and weird lights and spots, like everybody does. But apparently those were signs of the demons that were engaging with me at the time. And so my parents did this. They took me to this. And then I finally got let back in the school. That would have been 8th grade. And then really come freshman year, I just was determined to get the fuck out of that school and graduate.
I never got a formal punishment like that. My punishment was like,
of course you
getting
didn't.
suspended all the time. And then it got to a point where I was getting suspended too much. They started doing the in-school suspension. That was some fucking bullshit.
That was better.
No, it wasn't.
Well, I think...
Oh.
Hi, guys.
Dogs are barking.
I think in-school suspension is worse than at home. Don't you think?
Hell no. Oh, yeah, it's worse.
That's what I'm saying.
I
That's
thought
why
you meant
it's
it's
more...
better. No, it was way worse.
Effective.
No, that was garbage. I never wanted to get suspended after that because I was... But I still got to...
Yeah.
That was nonsense. They'd have me sit in this little fucking room the whole time, and I think I got to a point where like I found out a way to like ask for a laptop saying I had to do homework on it, and I would just play like cool math games.
Of course you would.
And just mess around, watch YouTube videos. But
they called that detention back in my day. We had to do that like after hours. No, I guess I did get like told I had to sit in the office for hours at a time. I will say my sophomore year, I got kicked out of math class almost every day. I was in algebra, and it was algebra 2 by then, my sophomore year, and I hate algebra. It does not make sense to my brain, and my math teacher had zero tolerance for me and my questions. Because my questions were like, why? Why is that? Why is that the answer? Explain it to me. And he had no desire to engage in that conversation. So about 10 minutes into every class, he would be like, Tina, go sit in the hall. And I'd be like, seriously, like, how am I supposed to learn math this way? And then I would go sit in the hall for the entire period. That was pretty consistent.
How many times have you been arrested? Once?
Yes, Josh, I've been arrested 1 time. Yeah, so you want me to tell my story?
Yeah, tell him.
All right. So at the age of 19, with his older sister, I moved out on my own, and I lived in the basement of a house, and there was these 2 girls that lived upstairs, and one of them befriended me. They both did, but one really did, and they told me how to get a fake ID. I was going to California to hang out with my cousin and 2 of my cousins, and then one of my cousins had a couple friends. They were in the Marines, and so we were all meeting up in LA, and we were gonna go party for the weekend, and so I needed a fake ID. So they told me, like, this is how you get a fake ID. You memorize this girl, the other girl that lived upstairs, you memorize her information. She had a passport from when she was a little kid that I looked sort of similar to. Not a ton, but sort of similar. This girl was way heavier than me, and I was pretty thin at the time. And so they
Oh,
said...
you're just giving all the details, huh?
Yeah. So they said, I just want everybody to know what not to do. That's why I'm...
Okay.
So you memorize all the information, you go into the DMV and you tell them you lost your license. And you basically talk your way into them giving you a replacement license using this old passport and then memorizing this person's information. And when they ask you about the weight issue, you just say you lost a lot of weight. So I did that. And I was really good at convincing this lady. I am pretty good at
So
that.
you got a license.
I got a driver's license. A real driver's license. My picture, this girl's information.
Would you accidentally hand it to a cop or something?
No.
Tried to get it
I
in the
used
club?
it. It works perfect. It was real. It's authentic. I come home. This girl upstairs is dating a guy, and I find out they're selling drugs out of the upstairs. Well, I have a daughter. If I get caught up in this, they're taking my daughter away from me. So I tell her she can't have any contact with me anymore. If he's going to be dealing drugs out of the upstairs, I want nothing to do with them. And she goes on a vengeful mission, and they report me for stealing this girl's identity. So the police officer shows up to my house and says,
What a
I have
bitch.
a warrant for your arrest. And I'm like, for what? And she says, felony fraud impersonation. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so she was a female cop. So I proceed to explain to her that I'm a single mom and I have my daughter, and I got into it with these guys upstairs because she's selling drugs out of the house. So she doesn't arrest me. She was supposed to, but she doesn't because she knows they're going to have to take my kid, put her in state custody. So I move out of this place that week, go home to my parents. The girls, I came back to the house a week later to get my mail. They had filed a restraining order. Apparently I didn't know about yet, hadn't been served with. And so they reported me as violating the restraining order. So now I had a violation on a restraining order. So I'm going to court for both of these issues. Well, apparently they were sending some of my court stuff for the felony fraud to the old address, which I clearly was never getting.
They were just throwing it away?
They were just throwing it away. Mind you, I'm still showing up to court for the other issue. So I'm in and out of the same court for the other issue. Well, the state seems to think they can't find me. They issue a bench warrant. I'm at my parents' house, and in the middle of the night, and my parents live at the end of a cul-de-sac. My aunt and uncle live across the street. The two other houses are people that went to this cult church growing up. It's at a dead end. In the middle of the night, they swatted our house, surrounded the house, every door, came up. My dad answered the door in the middle of the night. They asked for me. I step out in a t-shirt and shorts, and they arrest me. And then they drove me around for hours.
Drove you around for
Yeah,
hours?
they kept me in the back of the car for like 3 hours and then brought me down to King County in downtown Seattle. And my dad bailed me out. But that was my arrest story.
Nice.
So I worked my way out of that. A year later, a judge ended up like basically dismissing it, doing like a deferred whatever, because he was like, what did you get, a fake ID? And I was like, yeah, apparently, but not the right way. So that's it. So felony fraud is what it's called when you get a fake ID that's actually a real ID. And I learned that the hard way.
Identity theft?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
I think I've been arrested
Well,
like 7 times.
no, maybe let's not do all that on video. You had a few encounters. It can't be that many.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my God. Okay,
Yeah,
we
I
don't
gotta
condone
know.
that behavior.
Yeah, a lot of it was just stupid. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I do think some of that is different though for guys. I
What do
think
you mean?
well, I think you guys get arrested quicker than maybe women do for things.
Maybe.
Yeah, it feels like they're quicker to arrest men than they are to arrest women.
Well, I mean,
Which is
it kind
fair.
of
I don't say that's not fair. I think that's probably fair.
it kind of piles on too.
Well, it does.
Like once you got a
start having
couple, once you got then it's like they see what you got going on.
Exactly, and they have less and less shits to give about not arresting you.
Yeah.
They're gonna arrest you even if it seems like it's something small.
Yeah.
Because you're in your eye, in their eyes, you're a troublemaker and you're escalating that trouble, which is a sign of problems to come. So in all fairness, it makes sense that the more trouble you continue to get in, the quicker they are to arrest you, because nobody wants that.
And unfortunately, but I mean, obviously I'm grateful. I've cut a lot of breaks, in my opinion, because of fucking white privilege. And
That's true. That's real.
like,
Very much.
Like,
And
I mean,
middle class privilege.
I've had a lot of friends that have done similar, if not lesser, things and have dealt with more severe consequences. Pretty confident just because they're not white and don't have
For sure. Well,
as
and then
much
let's talk about the resources. Our system is set up that the more money you have to throw at the legal system, the better your outcome's going to be, which means that the more access to money, the less likely you are to get in as significant trouble as maybe a counterpart who doesn't have the same access.
The whole system's just fucked.
Yeah, so I would agree. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will think differently, but I think it's a broken system for sure. And I don't think that it's a system that is set up to see people actually be rehabilitated and actually get the help that they need to make significant changes in their life and be a healthy citizen in society. I think it's a system that's set up to capitalize on money and the way that it works, and it definitely is not a system that's set up to benefit people of color. We've talked about that a lot, and I've talked about that a lot with your friends. I would tell Jesh and his friends growing up, and the majority of Jesh's friends have an ethnic diversity that isn't white, and I would tell them all the time, you have to be smart enough to be smarter than the system that's set up against you. Because I do really believe that the system is set up against them.
For sure.
And it's not there to support them, and it's not there to see them do better.
No.
And it isn't for anybody, but particularly there is a bent towards the scales of justice not being weighted in the favor of people of color.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really not okay. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah. I think outside of
it's
obviously there's
that's not even a good enough word, and I want to be clear on that. It's not unfortunate, it's wrong. It's flat out wrong.
Yeah, it's fucked
and
up.
I'm not going to try to minimize it by saying it's unfortunate. That's bullshit. It's absolutely wrong. It's a mistreatment of humans. It's a mistreatment of people. It's disgusting. There's no support I can say that I have for the foundation of that system.
Mm-hmm.
There are things in the system that do work and can work when you meet up with the right people that are trying to use it for good, but the system itself is broken.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know, yeah. I'm not getting into my legal trouble too much or anything because
it's not necessary.
When you're 46, I'm still young, right. So I still got a lot of opportunities that there's no reason for me to be trying to out myself.
No.
That's just, yeah.
I'm 46. I can talk about it now. It's so far in my past.
I'm not trying to dry snitch on myself. Oh, cat.
Oh, God. I will tell you this, Jesh. I think I was in my late 20s when I tried to apply to be a correction officer, a police officer.
How the fuck would you ever want to do that?
I don't know. I'm an Enneagram 2, which is the helper. So any job that seems like it has a premise in helping people always spoke to me. And so in my search to find purpose and meaning and where would I be able to help people, those are jobs that come up. I mean, I started out thinking I was going to be a doctor, and then so that's where I fit into the spectrum of life and trying to find purpose. But the point is that I tried for the correction officer, and I can tell you that my fraud charge was held against me. Nice. Even though it had been deferred and dismissed. Nice. They still said no. And then the police officer route, I made it through several phases of that. But when I walked in for one of the things, I overheard the police officers in Bothell saying, "Freeze? Yeah, do you guys see this? Freeze. Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if this was like the freeze we all know, the J freeze?" Which is my husband.
Nice.
And Joshua's dad. So right there and then I knew that I wouldn't make it through those final phases of being a police officer simply because of my proximity. So these are the things that choices have ripple effects and consequences far beyond what we ever can imagine.
I mean, that's like Jada getting into high school and them all knowing me and just automatically casting judgment on my little sister who's just a doll.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your little sister who's super easy and just loves to get along. And
she's the most giving, loving person in the world.
She got set up by so many people because
they
were prejudging. Yeah, sorry, Bugs.
Sis.
They were prejudging. But these are the things that really, when you're in life and you start to give yourself the chance to think about your choices in light of the potential consequences.
I think this is like the main lesson you could take away from this is like how your choices affect those around you and other people.
That's right. You're never living this journey with no impact on the people around you. It's impossible.
You're never going to be the sole benefactor of consequences.
Yeah, the sole bearer of the consequences. You won't. Other people will suffer the consequences with you because that is how life works. And you cannot escape it. And so the more you wrap your brain around that and use that as a tool when you're making decisions and when you're pre-thinking through what you would do in situations, because here's the thing, I did learn this in life. If you wait to the moment to make the decision, that's too late. Mm-hmm. You have to think ahead of time. If I ever find myself in this position, what am I going to do? How am I going to react? I face this all the time on the plane because people get under my skin all the time. And I want to just rip people up when they're complete assholes. But I have to pre-think how I'm going to respond in that moment. And I know that in that moment, if I respond that way, I have the potential to lose my job that then affects these guys. And then, it has this vast, big impact. And so I have to preset my mind to when I encounter certain things, I'm just not going to respond.
Well, every choice I've made that's anything from crashing your guys' cars to you guys having to help bear some of the financial weight of the choices I've made to car getting shot up to freaking whatever,
lawyers fees,
all of that.
Plenty of those.
The emotional stress that you guys have bared because of the choices I've made. We talked about in one of the first episodes, how distraught you guys were, trying to figure out where I was the first time I got
right. The material consequences are probably seem at the time maybe they're the biggest impact, and in reality, they're really the least.
Yeah. Because
it's the long-term emotional consequences and it's the forward consequences. We've talked about that with you guys growing up and your dad, Your dad got into trouble at your age and he had to deal and bear the consequences of that. And then he went on to be and is a great upstanding citizen and owns a business and is kind and generous and giving and has spent all of his years since then, hardly even getting a ticket. And he was denied the ability to be able to coach or go on field
chaperone
trips,
for
school stuff. And I guarantee you at the age of 19, when he was making the choices that led him to that trouble, his forward thinking never thought, I wonder if someday I'm a dad and I'd like to go be a part of these things in my kids' lives. would this keep me from that? He was caught up in the moment, that forward thinking of consequences, the unseen consequences of what I always called them. And they're the ones that are going to keep coming.
Yeah.
As part of that lifelong journey. So.
Yeah. So for anybody listening, I mean, hopefully, a lot of you guys already kind of know that, like how heavily maybe your choices impact those around you. But
yeah,
those of you that haven't, necessarily thought about that, or just remember, your choices don't always just affect you. They always have an impact on those around you. So
yeah, I think there's two things. I think that's one. Your choices are always going to impact other people. You will never be the sole bearer of your consequences. It's just not how life works. And two, I would say, try to think forward in your life of what you want your life to be. What do you dream it to be? And use that to be the catalyst to help you make the choices now that will get you there.
Yeah.
And avoid the choices that will keep you from that. And if you can think with that little bit longer term perspective into the future of what you would want, I think it can be a great deterrent from that temporary moment where you might act out and do something that maybe in the moment feels good, but isn't going to be the thing that's going to get you to those longer places you want to be in life.
Yeah, that's like they always say, like, think first, act second,
Yeah.
Versus
but you got to know what's your
second.
motivation, right? Like, what's motivating you to make the different choice? And if you won't give yourself a chance to dream and think about what you'd want for your future, then there's less motivation. And if you give yourself the opportunity to think about it in that long scope, you, one, have more motivation. And then if you can channel the relationships that matter to you in life and the desire not to hurt those, then you've got even more motivation.
No? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Episode 10.
I mean, I hope you guys laughed a little in this one and maybe learned something about us you didn't know.
If this podcast takes off, if the content, all that shit, and this turns into my full-time job, I'll give you guys another episode and break down all the dumb shit I actually did.
He needs some financial security first.
I left you guys with a little bit of a cliffhanger, but
it's a necessary cliffhanger.
It's necessary right now. So
that's true.
Like I said, if this shit takes off and this turns into my full-time job, the content...
We'll go deeper down the rabbit hole.
We'll go deeper, and I'll give you guys some funny stuff. But
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for episode 10. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget 5 stars.
Yes, please.
On Apple, Spotify. That helps us
as well as... It's so easy just to click and do it.
It's right at the top.
Yep.
And then YouTube,
subscribe.
Make sure to subscribe. Drop a like on
Easy
this video
too.
if you enjoyed it. And drop a comment if you guys want to hear anything. So
enjoy your Thursday.
Yes.
I finally got it right.
Yeah. Enjoy your Thursday, and we will see you guys next week.
See you again. Peace.